Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahavidyan karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good. Welcome to all of you. Welcome also to the many students who attend these programs online. We are continuing with our advanced meditation session. I have a couple of questions to ask of you, but we'll ask that in just a few minutes. I need some feedback. We'll come to that in a few minutes. A lot of people have asked me, and have asked in other venues, how to experience non-duality. And that sounds like such an absolutely profound question. Swamiji, how can I experience non-duality? As profound as that question sounds, it also reveals a very significant lack of understanding about non-duality and experience. Because just in very simple terms, if you are the experiencer, and non-duality is something experienced by you, how many things are there? We got at least one experiencer and one experienced non-duality. You get it. And I know this is a frequently asked question, and there is no doubt profundity behind it, but you see the very obvious mistake made in taking the very first step. Non-duality is not something out there in the world that you can experience. That makes sense. But people will think, oh, non-duality is something inside that I have to experience. Perhaps that's a better way of putting it, but doesn't the problem still exist? If non-duality is inside you someplace, I'm not sure. I'm being silly just to make a point. If non-duality is inside you someplace, and you are the observer, and the inner non-duality is something observed by you, that's still duality. So let us, since this is such an often asked question, let's examine it in a little bit more detail using the teachings of Advaita Vedanta. Advaita, of course, means non-dual. And after this discussion, then we'll talk about a meditation practice in which we can explore this subject matter. I'm sorry, I can't teach you how to experience non-duality for the reason we just explained. There is no such thing as experience of non-duality. On the other hand, experience is a fact of life. Non-duality is a truth discovered by the ancient rishis, a reality discovered by the ancient rishis. So we can certainly explore this quite a bit. So let's begin. Okay. So let's begin with a presumption. And just pardon me for just 2 minutes of logic, because that question is based on wrong logic. How do you deal with wrong logic? Correct logic. So here's the way we would address it. Also, Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya, and all the teachers make extensive use of logic. Why? because all of us are so careless in our use of logic, they have to correct us again and again, which they do quite well. So here's how it goes. I shouldn't use the word if, since the ancient rishis discovered non-duality as a reality. Now, you may not have personally discovered that reality of non-duality, but I think most of you would be willing to give the benefit of the doubt to the ancient rishis and to this tradition which has managed to survive several thousands of years without being torn down by logic, by modern science, by anything. Nothing has been able to assail these teachings. So starting with their discovery, their understanding of the truth of non-duality, and since, based on our opening discussion, non-duality cannot be an object. So if non-duality cannot be an object, remember in my example, I said you are the experiencer and non-duality is the experienced. So we said non-duality cannot be an experienced. Get rid of it. It's a false concept, a false assumption. So non-duality as a concept, non-duality as an independent existence out there someplace or in here someplace, we get rid of that. There is no object called non-duality. But there is the experiencer. And for the experiencer, in grammar, we use the word subject. There's a relationship between object and subject. The subject is the one who knows an object. So we've already dismissed the object. We're left with the subject. The subject is the experiencer, himself or herself. Now we're getting a little closer. The experiencer, according to the ancient rishis, the fundamental nature of the experiencer is non-dual. That's the only other possibility, right? So we've already gotten rid of the object called non-duality. We're left with the experiencer, the subject. So if we are going to give the benefit of the doubt to the ancient rishis, that non-duality must be a property of the subject, of the experiencer, and the experiencer is the one listening to these words. That's not so complicated. Who is the experiencer? You, the one aware of my words and my ideas. Notice how I phrase that. I'm not referring to the body sitting in your chair. I'm not referring to the prana, the life force that keeps your body awake for at least for some time. Meditation in the evening is a little bit dicey, as they say. And we'll do the best we can. So when I say the experiencer, I'm referring to you, the awareful being. You, the conscious being. Not the body, not all this other stuff, just in very simple terms. You, the conscious being, the awareful observer of whatever's happening right now. So, going back to what the ancient rishis said, they said that observer, that consciousness, that awareness, which is your essential nature, we use the word atma for that essential nature, and we use the word chaitanya or chit for consciousness. So chaitanya atma is a term often found in texts, that conscious true self. Chaitanya atma, according to the ancient rishis, is non-dual. Now, that's a statement that we have to verify. In many other classes of a topic we love to discuss is how The teachings of Vedanta are not a belief system. When the ancient rishis discovered that your true nature as consciousness happens to be non-dual, and they taught that not as something to believe. In fact, if you believe that consciousness is non-dual, what do you get out of that? I mean, that's a challenging question. It's a belief. If you believe in God, believe in Ishvara, that opens a door to a prayer life. That opens a door to prayer, to a relationship with the Supreme Being. If you believe in the doctrine of karma, which is also a belief system, that gives you some tools, very helpful, practical tools to help navigate the complexities of your life. Very helpful. If you believe that consciousness is non-dual, it changes nothing. Nothing at all. In fact, to believe in that consciousness is non-dual is exactly like believing that E equals mc squared. Do you believe it? I think so. I mean, I don't think any of us are smart enough to refute Professor Einstein, who used to live down the road in Princeton. So you believe it. We can't derive the equation, but you accept it. You accept it as being true without proof. Why? You trust Einstein. And all the great scientists who have come afterwards. But here's the difference. If you accept non-duality as being true based on the authority of the ancient rishis, isn't that the same thing as believing in E equals mc squared? Does belief in E equals mc squared change your life in any way at all? Do you get abundant energy? After all, you have lots of mass. And if you multiply that by c squared, you should have a lot of energy. You get the point. It's not a matter of belief. The ancient rishis discovered it. It's a personal discovery, and the teachings they gave us are like a roadmap to help us discover what they discovered. Belief in non-duality, belief in consciousness being non-dual is not helpful at all. To discover that your consciousness, the consciousness by which you know what's happening right now, to discover that that consciousness is non-dual. And further, to verify that truth in meditation. Notice I didn't say you experience non-duality in meditation, but I will certainly say meditation is an opportunity to verify that fact. How? You can verify it not by experiencing it, but it can be verified. How? We said already, consciousness, according to the ancient rishis, is non-dual. Consciousness is the very content, the essence of your experience right now. Experience is based on consciousness. Is your experience right now non-dual? Certainly not. Look around us. I mean, the world is full of duality, and that's what we experience all the time. But there are times when the experience of duality goes away. The most common example of the absence of duality in your experience is deep sleep. Dreamless sleep. In dreamless sleep, first of all, if you I'm presuming that you've studied enough Vedanta to know that you are as conscious in deep sleep as you are now. If you have not understood that properly, you need some remedial work. You need to study some more Vedanta and understand that properly, that your mind goes away in deep sleep, not consciousness. Consciousness remains utterly the same, even when your mind enters into that state of dreamless sleep. So it's a good example of the absence of the experience of duality. Is it proper to look, and here, one more minute of logic. In deep sleep, you don't experience duality. Can we then conclude that in deep sleep, you do experience non-duality? Do you see the flaw in that logic? Just because you don't experience something doesn't mean you do experience the opposite. What a silly argument. So, what is going on in deep sleep? It is consciousness in the absence of the experience of duality. Often it's described as consciousness without an object. We're most commonly, we're all very familiar with consciousness in the presence of objects, mostly mental objects, objects in our mind, thoughts, sensations, emotions, all of this mental stuff, mental objects called vrittis. All those vrittis are objects of which you are aware. You're conscious of all these objects. In deep sleep, they go away. What is present in deep sleep is consciousness in the absence of duality. Here's now 30 more seconds of logic. If consciousness had the property of duality, that property of duality would be present in deep sleep, would it not? Suggesting that in deep sleep, you might have an experience of duality. Like, oh, I'm really deeply asleep. Yeah, but you don't have that experience. You don't have any experience, consciousness without an object. And what I've just hinted at is what the ancient rishis described, and that is the consciousness that remains in deep sleep is non-dual. There it is. The consciousness which remains in deep sleep is non-dual. Now, a little bit of Vedanta, we have to stay on our meditation track here, so I won't go very far. The consciousness present in deep sleep is non-dual. What about the consciousness present right now? This is another big topic in Vedanta, and that is you have to discover that consciousness doesn't change. There are no states of consciousness. Your mind has lots of states. Your mind is constantly changing. The consciousness which reveals the changing conditions of your mind, that consciousness is unchanging. So I'm just hinting at a Vedantic topic that we won't discuss, and that is, if consciousness is non-dual in deep sleep, consciousness is non-dual right now. Of course, there's a lot of duality present in your experience because of your mind. Anyway, and that's what we're going to deal with in meditation. There's only one problem, another common question. Swamiji, what is the difference between deep sleep and samadhi? And the simple answer, I learned this from my guru. He kind of always said this a little tongue-in-cheek. And the difference between deep sleep and samadhi is in deep sleep, you're sleeping. In samadhi, you're awake. If you're asleep in samadhi, that's not samadhi. You drifted off as you're meditating, as many people do that. Okay. So what we want to accomplish, and this is to introduce tonight's meditation. Let me get rid of this little pop-up. Okay, that way I can see that it's working right. What we want to accomplish in tonight's meditation is this. First of all, stay awake. Secondly, perform a meditation technique that can make your mind as silent as it is in deep sleep just for 1 second. Only 1 second. So we're not talking about becoming master meditators overnight, but a moment of silence. In that moment of silence, it's like deep sleep, in the sense that non-dual consciousness is present in that moment of silence, and nothing else, just like in deep sleep. The difference, of course, is in that moment of silence, you're not asleep, you're awake. And that moment of silence is enough to verify what the ancient rishis taught, that your consciousness is non-dual. You do not experience non-duality. In that moment of silence, you confirm, through your absence of experience of any duality, you confirm what the ancient rishis taught. Okay, this is our meditation, and before we begin the meditation, I need to check in with you and see how we're doing here. How many, we call this an advanced meditation session, so we assume that you are regular meditators, but I need a little feedback. So I'll just ask you to raise your hands. How many of you have experienced a moment, just a moment of silence in meditation? How many of you? Okay, that's helpful. How many of you, last month in our previous advanced meditation session, I asked you to perform a technique that you find particularly helpful to quiet your mind. Instead of making everyone do the same technique, I find it's very helpful that you choose the technique that works best for you, and then you do that during our meditation. How many of you found it, and we did that last week for about 10 minutes, of those of you who were present, not last week, last month, of those of you who were in a session, how many of you found it difficult to make your mind fairly quiet, practicing your favorite technique? You're okay with that. A couple of you. Okay. This is not the time for a big, what do they call it, cheerleading session to encourage you to practice more meditation. Let me just suggest very briefly, I have practiced meditation every day for roughly 45 years. I can't tell you how much that practice has blessed me. So the message is, don't wait. Get on the track and practice at least once a day, every day, at a time that suits you. Let it be an important part of your daily schedule, and that it will bless you every day, and it'll make you in much better shape for our meditation tonight. Okay, what we're going to do is we'll start in just a couple of minutes. We'll go through our usual steps of preparation, and then I'll invite you to practice the technique you find most helpful to quiet and focus your mind. Whatever that technique is, we don't care what it is, whatever works for you, I'll ask you to practice that technique for about 10 minutes. And just to make sure no one drifts off away from that practice, every now and then I'll chant Om softly, just to kind of remind us that this is a time for some kind of serious, dedicated practice. So after you've done your technique for about 10 minutes, then I will begin a very simple technique that seems to help create that moment of silence. I won't explain in detail how it works, and Patanjali actually goes into it in some detail in his Yoga Sutras. It's the use of a mantra, and here we're simply going to use Om. And something very interesting happens when you're chanting Om, 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 Om. When you are already in a meditative state and put gaps in between recitations of a mantra, that is the simplest technique for creating that 1 second moment of silence. I have not found any technique more effective in doing that, so that is the technique we'll take up. And then in the gap of silence in between mantras, you'll have an opportunity not to experience non-duality. If after meditation you say, Swamiji, I experienced non-duality, what to say? Fortunately, that's not going to happen. What you might say is that you had an opportunity to verify, to personally discover and validate what the ancient rishis discovered. Okay, with that introduction, we can begin. We'll turn the lights down. In the lobby, make sure the lobby light is off, but the hanging cord is, I'm sorry, the lobby is on. I got it backwards. Lobby is on, and the ceiling light is off. Very good. Okay, let us begin. Close your eyes, please. Take a moment to check that your back is fairly erect and adjust your posture if needed. Take a deep breath. Take a moment to get settled down. We begin with a sankalpa in which we acknowledge the fact that our minds are full of concerns and problems, and we love to solve those problems. But right now, solving those problems will be a huge distraction. So, for the next half an hour, we give ourselves permission to set aside all those problems and concerns. For the next half hour, we give ourselves permission to dedicate 100% of our minds to this meditation practice. Next, a brief exercise to relax the body and concentrate the mind. Start by turning your attention to your feet. Become aware of the sense of pressure as your feet press down upon the floor. Feel the firmness of the floor beneath you. Be aware of other sensations in your feet, warmth, coolness, touch of your clothing, and notice if there's any tension in the muscles of your feet, and let go of that tension. Then turn to your ankles and calves Again, become aware of sensations, pressure, touch of your clothing, warmth, coolness. Notice any tension in your ankles and calves and let go of that tension. Now your knees and thighs together. As before, become aware of sensations. For example, notice the weight of your hands or arms where they rest. Be aware of sensations and let go of any tension. Now the trunk of your body. Feel the weight of your body pressing down on the seat. Feel the firmness of the seat beneath you and let go of any tension. Your lower back and stomach together. Let go of any tension. Your upper back and chest. Notice the touch of your clothing that hangs on your body. Let go of any tension in your shoulders, in your upper arms and elbows. Let go of tension in your forearms and wrists. Let go of tension in your hands, palms, fingers, right up to your fingertips. Let go of any tension. Let go of any tension in your neck, face, head, throughout your body. Now is the time for you to begin to practice whatever technique that you find most effective in making your mind silent, quiet, and focused. Begin your practice now. We'll continue for just 10 minutes. So for the next 10 minutes, practice your chosen technique with commitment, with diligence and care. for 2 more minutes. Continue to practice your technique with great diligence and attention. Now we can begin the next part of our practice. In this practice, I'll chant Om out loud. You chant it silently in your mind along with me. As I'm chanting aloud, you chant in your mind. And as I suggested, there will be gaps between Oms, not initially. After a while, there will be gaps intentionally inserted in our chanting. And those gaps, intervals, gives you an opportunity to have a moment of silence in your mind. Just listen and chant with me silently. Om. 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 Om.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om. This concludes our meditation. You can open your eyes. We can turn the room lights on. You can do this technique at home on your own, best perhaps by using a mantra that you regularly use. And I think I modeled the way in which you can use it. Begin repeating the mantra fairly rapidly, normal pace. And then after a while, when you become settled in the meditation, then begin to experiment with the technique by putting some gap in between recitation of mantras. If you can understand, if the gap becomes too long, your meditation will fade away. So when you find yourself less focused on the mantra, then maybe it's best to return to the more rapid kind of chanting again until your mind is focused once again. There is no one right way of doing the technique. Actually, modeled several different techniques for you.
definitely this technique should be done silently. Don't recite your mantra aloud. The effort in reciting a mantra aloud will be a big distraction. And if you have difficulty with keeping your mind focused on a mantra, then more practice is required. And when you've practiced enough so that you can perform this technique in such a way where you arrive at those moments of silence, I think you'll find that your practice has really paid off, as they say in American English. So please continue your daily practice. We'll end with a prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.